Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. A lot of news out of this podcast, chock full. Hope you're sitting down because there's going to be a lot to take in. Got a spring game recap. We had a portal visitor on that visit on campus for the spring game. We had two football commits for the class of 2020. I guess one was class of 2024, one was class of 2025. Yep. We'll get into more of that. Give you an update on some hoops portal recruiting as well. Mm-hmm. But like always, this podcast presenting sponsor is Night and Day Apparel. Calling all Rutgers students, fans, and alumni. Are you looking for new and unique Rutgers merchandise? Night and Day Apparel has you covered. From t-shirts and hoodies to drinkware and pet accessories, Night and Day focuses on providing the Rutgers community with exclusive, one-of-a-kind tailgating products. Be sure to check out the links in today's podcast description to their website and social media so you can stay on top of everything Night and Day, including new merch drops and promotional announcements. Shop now and keep chopping. At the game on Saturday, actually, I lent my girlfriend the Rutgers bomber jacket, and she had 2 or 3 people stop her and ask where they got it. So I did a little bit of recruiting for Night and Day at the spring game. So you're welcome to Connor and the folks there. So let's talk about that spring game, though. Glorified scrimmage. I think the score ended up being 30-24. The Scarlet team won. Mm-hmm. Gavin Wimsatt was the quarterback of the Scarlet team. Ethan Kaliakmanis was the starting quarterback of the white team. Let's start right off the top. The most hot button issue all offseason for Rutgers football fans has been the quarterback, bringing in Ethan. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people were happy with Gavin last year, given his statistical performance. What did you see out of both quarterbacks? Did this kind of mirror what you've been seeing in the spring? Talk about it as much as you feel comfortable, because you got to see Greg in person. I don't.
yeah, that's true. No, I mean, I think I could talk a little bit about it. It's basically the same. It's nothing different. It's kind of what we kind of said going into the offseason too. Like when you add a guy like Ethan Kaliakmanis, who had slightly better percentage numbers, he did exactly that. He was slightly better than Gavin. Numbers wise kind of showed that. I don't think it's any secret. Look at the stats. Numbers never lie. But yeah, no, I mean, like this is what it is. It's not like he's going to blow you away. It's not like you were getting some superstar stud quarterback. You're just getting a slightly better version of what you had last year. Maybe less mobile a little bit, but he's got wheels of his own. Like people keep talking about how Gavin's the dual threat of the two. Like that's the difference maker. If you go back to their high school days and go at their combines and their camp times, Gavin ran a 4.840. Kaliakmanis ran a 4.6. He is technically the faster of the two. And you saw him. There's times it's tough to say how much running he would have had in the scrimmage because they just blow these plays dead for the most part. But there's one where they blew it as a sack technically, but he also took off. So it's like you negate those numbers, and then that hurts a little bit. Like he's more mobile than people give him credit for, Kaliakmanis. Either way, I mean, they aired it out quite a bit, which was nice for a change because you just don't see that. And Greg said it in pregame. He said Air Shiraka is going to be on display, and it's just like he just buys into the fact that they're just a run it down your throat team. That's just what they are. That's what they're going to be, and you just need someone that can complete the very basic passes. Yep. And end of the day, I'm still very confident it's going to be Kaliakmanis. I think he's the better of the two, and I think he's the more accurate of the two. Is he superior when it comes to accuracy? No, but he's definitely better. There's not like a big gap, but there's a pretty small gap there. Like, it's nothing crazy. I just think this is just basically what we saw. We saw some good things from a Johnny Shepard against the 2s and 3s, which again, take it with a grain of salt. AJ Serace had some blunders, but other than that, it was just it's a glorified scrimmage is one way to put it, but it's like less than that. It was basically just like a small version of practice, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of want to hit on some positives and negatives out of both. And again, they played for a little bit longer than a quarter each. So
yeah,
and it's a controlled environment. You're playing against the same defenders who have seen the same plays for a month straight now. So take all this with a grain of salt. Some positives I saw with Gavin. So I thought he looked more decisive in terms of scrambling. Last year, he had a very low scramble rate despite running as much as he did. Almost all his runs last year came on designed runs, QB power or things like that. He very rarely had a passing play that he saw running lane and took it, and he very rarely kept the ball on an RPO situation to pick up a big gain when the defensive end was crashing in on the running back. That's something that we've talked about, and he scrambled a lot more. He got a lot more, outside the play running on Saturday than he had last season as a starter. So that was a positive for him. Another positive, I thought he looked just more confident out there than he did last year. I think having another year in the system definitely helps with that. With regard to Ethan, some positives I saw from him. I thought his deep ball accuracy was far superior to Gavin's. Neither of them, had 5 or 6 bombs they completed, but Gavin overthrew a couple guys. The first deep throw that Ethan had was a perfect throw over the shoulder to Asim Brantley down the sideline, and he also had connected on a couple others later in the game. I also thought there was a lot more. He did a lot better with accuracy on the in-breaking kind of slant routes. The touchdown to his brother Dino was one example of that. He had a perfect ball placement on another touchdown later in the game. I think that was also to Asim Brantley in the back of the end zone on a fade route. Some negatives, I thought Gavin's accuracy struggled at points. You saw early in the game, there was a tip pass on his first attempt. The second attempt was supposed to be a wheel route to Gabe Winovich, and it was just nowhere near the guy. I think he missed on his first 4 throws, but then he started to get a feel for it and kind of pick things back up. I thought with Gavin or that Ethan, you saw some of the, he's going to put the ball in harm's way more often than Gavin does. I think that's because Gavin is more likely to, throw a ball out of bounds than Ethan is. Ethan, the second throw of the game for him, which should have been, 6 going the other way. Isaiah Crumpler dropped a would-be pick 6. But Ethan's got to be better in terms of taking care of the ball because that was on his tape. He did throw some ugly interceptions. Gavin doesn't really do that. But Gavin doesn't really big play hunt either. So it's kind of you take the good with the bad. Overall, I don't think either quarterback really blew me away. I don't think either of them are, from that limited sample size, gave you, a surefire, he's the, winner of the quarterback battle. I think when you stack days like that, when, maybe Ethan looked, 55%, Gavin was 45%. When you stack days like that over and over and over, maybe you have a bigger, gap than we saw in the limited showing on Saturday. But I don't think Greg's going to name a starter until at least midway through camp. I don't think he wants anybody to leave prior to the summer. So I think this battle will continue to rage on. He did say something I thought was funny in his post-game presser where somebody asked, I think he said at first, I'll let you know when we've decided. And he's like, actually, hold on. I'm not going to let you know when you decide. I'll let you know when I'm ready to let you know. So I think they might have an internal decision sooner than we expect, but they certainly aren't going to make that public until they have to. There's no point. They announced Gavin as the starter early in early in camp last year. I don't expect them to do something similar this year. I think they're going to wait as long as possible. I could even see them not naming a starter going into week 1 because Gianna's big about secrecy, big about keeping a competitive advantage, even if, it's not really going to matter because, your first 2 opponents are Akron and FCS. I think it's Wagner, right? Howard. Yeah. So your first 2 opponents, you're going to just beat the hell out of anyway. So, and then we have a bye going into the Virginia Tech week. So it's not like he's going to have a huge advantage early on in the season anyway, but the more secrecy, the better, I guess. I don't know. That's his philosophy. But that's kind of my take on quarterbacks. I know you see them more often being at practice, but that was just kind of my general take.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could hide it as much as you want, but in reality, stuff's going to leak out no matter what. There's people in every building and every program that leak stuff out. Look at the Boston College game 2 years ago, for example. Halfway's like, I knew Vedral was hurt for a month now. I knew it. Everyone knew it. Knew he wasn't going to play. And it's like, how'd you know? Obviously, these lower level staffers always talk because they're always trying to get up in the world. They're always going to try to get that assistant coaching job or a promotion somewhere else. And hey, maybe if I tell Halfway this, he'll help me out. He'll get me a job. Reality, probably not. It's not going to work. But I will say the guy that leaked it is no longer on staff, so take that for what it's worth.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's that stuff gets leaked out no matter what. And I have a feeling that most other coaches, like maybe not Howard and Akron because they don't have the personnel, maybe Akron actually because Joe Moorhead feel like he knows a lot of guys. But for the most part, they're going to know who the starting quarterback is before it's publicly announced, probably. And if I had to guess, I would say the staff probably knows too. So
Yep.
we'll just wait and see.
Another thing from the spring game that stood out to me is like these pass catchers are clearly like a level above where we were last year collectively.
Yeah.
Like, even though you had some guys not playing, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball,
all the starters were out.
all the starters were out. But you had guys like Nassim Brantley making plays. You had guys like KJ Duff making plays.
Yeah.
You had guys like Kenny Fletcher making plays. I thought that was one of the biggest revelations. You know, Kenny Fletcher had that really nice pickup early on in the game where I think he had like a 30-yard pass from Ethan Kaliak-Manis.
Yeah.
But just kind of like showcasing his athletic ability as a guy who converted, 2 months ago to play tight end? Well, I guess the bowl game, but you didn't really get practice reps in, until like the start of April, end of March. So that's really promising. And when you take all into account with a lot of the starters not playing, I think we're in a really good spot, relatively speaking, on the pass catcher department. Anything else that stood out to you of any of the specific position groups or individual players?
I'd say Nassim Brantley kind of stood out a little bit, just because, we never knew what he was. We've seen him at the Western Illinois level. We've seen him at, where else was he? Sacred Heart level. But we never got to see him in the Rutgers uniform, and that was interesting. Falma Toure flashed quite a bit. I know he dropped
him. Yep.
or didn't drop it, I guess technically he called it. But he was pushed out of bounds on that one catch that would have been like a 30, 40-yard catch, I think it was. That's on top of his other 3 for 25 that he had. I thought he had a great day, and I think he's going to push for some playing time this year. It's going to be tough to get these receivers on the field because Dymere Miller, Ian Strong, Christian Dremel, right then and there. Benjamin Black didn't play, which I found intriguing. Now, that could have been one of two things because I didn't see him on the sideline, and I know he had his prom this weekend too. So I wonder if Greg kind of just let him go back down to school or back home for prom, number one. That's possible. Number two, because almost everyone that sat out was a starter for the most part. Maybe some freshmen sat out. Like I know Raynor Andrews sat out, but I don't expect him to do much as a first-year freshman. But most of if you look at who sat out, it's mostly all the starters, and you can kind of do the math there. There's your depth chart. So
interesting. Yeah, I do think now that you mentioned that, I think the Rutgers Football Instagram account tagged him in a picture of him at prom. So I think he was at prom this weekend.
So that would make more sense why he wasn't there because he's I could say this now, I guess. I could say it before, but he's flashed a ton this spring. Like everyone's been raving about him, Corey Duff, and Corey didn't have as good of a game, but still pretty good game. I know he got that one. He had a pass interference early on, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So the pass interference stuff too. I know everyone's like, man, DB's got to watch. They got like 3 pass interference calls. I'm like, that's like your second, third string DBs. So I think you're fine. It's okay. Like, you don't want to see it, but relax. Like the starters are still not playing. Yeah,
I totally agree. It is, again, you have to take everything you saw on Saturday with a huge grain of salt for several different reasons. But the starters not playing, or even sometimes backups not playing is definitely one of those grains of salt to take into account. So for the game itself, we did have a football portal visitor. Let's go into who that player is and kind of what the story is behind his visit.
Let me pop up because I can't pronounce it. No, I can't pronounce it actually. Lavario Wiley, if I got that right. I think that's right. It's L-A apostrophe V-A-R-I-O. Lavario. I don't know. But Central Michigan, Chippewas transfer defensive back. Listed as a safety, but played mostly corner last year for Central Michigan. This is a tall, lengthy guy, 6'1", 185, a.k.a. your prototypical corner that Greg Schiano loves. He loves that length at DB specifically. I don't think he's anything special. He's interesting. He started out at JUCO college in California. California kid, number one. Started out at a JUCO at Cerritos College also in California, and then got scooped up by Central Michigan as a 2022 prospect. 2 seasons, 21 games played. Wasn't a starter year one. Was a starter last year. Finished with 29 tackles and 3 pass deflections last season. I guess it's interesting. It's depth. I mean, you definitely need depth at cornerback, and it makes sense. This one kind of came out of nowhere, but he did take an official visit, so that's something to monitor. I know Mississippi State was after him, and he also took an official visit to San Diego State the week before. Competition's not great, but I think if Rutgers wants him, they can probably get him relatively quickly. But yeah, it's just clear as day that they definitely want to get another cornerback in there, and it makes sense because after Longerbeam and after Rogers, you have Mascow, and then it's really a guessing game. Like you have a guy in Al-Shadi Salam who moved over from running back this past offseason, late in the season, I should say. After him, it's Zylan Williams, redshirt freshman. It's too risky, especially for a team that's been very good at developing DBs to not have more DBs back there. I feel like it's just you need a corner. And I like Mascow. I think he's going to be really good. I think the staff, I shouldn't say I think, I know the staff thinks he's going to be really good. But just to get someone else in there, kind of like a stopgap type thing, like kind of like an Eric Rogers type, to be honest. So we'll see if he ends up on the banks or not. But if I had to guess right now, that's the only name we're hearing at cornerback. There's probably a good chance, but kind of wait and see.
Yeah, this kind of screams purely a depth piece, though, because if you look at his, I'm just looking at his PFF metrics.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 58.1 grade last year, which was 761st out of 852 qualifying cornerbacks. His coverage grade was a 55.8. If you look at his snaps, he saw the first 3 games of the season, he played 62 snaps. The second game, he played 68. The third game, he played 43. Mm-hmm. The following game, 15. Then 23, 25, 15, 16, 15, 31. Sounds like he got demoted at some point, which is obviously not something you want to see at the MAC. So I don't get this one. If it's just purely having a body there, sort of like a Charles Amonkwa, a guy you can really rely on in special teams because he shined at that or something like that in his previous stop. But if you're expecting this guy to come in and play serious minutes, unless there was some kind of injury that we're not aware of that he was hampering him all last year, I don't get this adding this guy. But again, they know DBs way better than any of us. So if Shiano wants this kid, I'll take his word for it. But seems a little strange to take a kid like Lavario. But that's just me.
Yeah, his older brother actually is a safety for the Seahawks, I think it was. Okay. So, I mean, not that it matters, but another connection to the league and all that. But yeah, really came out of nowhere. Not really sure what the connection is. Reached out to a couple people and I haven't really gotten an answer. It's just like, yeah, they saw him in the portal. And I'm like, all right, well, they kind of see something else. Like, I see him in the portal too, but I'm not impressed.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's we'll find out more shortly. I'm sure. Geez, shortly. I'm sure. Yeah, there we go. That sounds about
right. So moving on, we had 2 commitments since the last time we spoke. Let's start off with the athlete from North Carolina, Steven Murray. Rutgers continues to do really well in the Tar Heel State. Tell us a little bit about what Rutgers is getting in Steven Murray.
Speed, and speed. 10.6 100-meter dash is a track guy. Really good track dude. Just really fast athlete. He is coming in as an athlete, which is interesting. He does play cornerback and wide receiver for his high school team. But based on the numbers, 55 receptions for 900 yards, 16 touchdowns, or on defense, 32 tackles, 5 interceptions. Does a little bit of both. Just really good at tracking the ball down. Really fast. I can't state that enough. He's listed at 6'1", 165, skinny as hell. But I think he's more like 6'1", like 170. I'm waiting to get back he went to the Charlotte camp 3 weeks ago, April 14th, whatever that was. And it's a little over 2 weeks ago. So I'm waiting to get back the height and weight measurements from there to be more exact to see where he kind of sits. Because at 6 foot, 160, I'm thinking slot receiver. But if he's 6'1", 180, I'm thinking probably outside guy. But yeah, no, I mean, I think he's a solid kid. I think he's actually a really good prospect. I think he's actually underrated. This is like a Benjamin Black type. It's a speedster from North Carolina, from a school that I would say most of Rutgers fans and Rutgers Nation has never fucking heard of, in Eastern Guilford. And they're just sitting there like, oh, look, another North Carolina guy. And shout out to Scott Vallone, because that man not only built his own connections from the ground up in North Carolina, but he is dominating North Carolina now. Mind you, this kid didn't have any of the Carolina offers. I'm told that is likely because he went to an NC State camp and ran a slow time, which he blamed on a hamstring, I believe it was, from what I was told. He ran like in the 4.7s, and that's what kind of turned North Carolina State off, and some others, because they hear it word of mouth. It happens more often than you think. Kid can go to Rutgers and run a slow time, and then everyone in the Northeast knows about it somehow. But yeah, I mean, I still think he's a really good prospect. Watch his tape; like he's good. He's also had some interest from other schools. I think if he would have waited on the market a little bit and made some other visits, he would have had more offers. But he's only made like 4 visits, and one of those was Coastal Carolina. So I mean, they offered, but the rest of the Carolina schools just didn't offer. He visited Duke once, visited NC State a couple times. I think this is a great get. He's a 5.73 star for a reason. He's top 12 in North Carolina this year. Like this is a really good Benjamin Black-esque type of pickup. So just got to be able to hold on to him.
Yeah, Rutgers continues to dip into some of these southern states who have a ton of guys who might not get the exposure of some of the guys in big time New Jersey school or big time Florida school or whatever. Mm-hmm. They keep casting that net wider and wider, and the more guys you get from a certain state, you kind of build that presence, like you said, where you might pick up a kid and you talk to another coach on the other sideline who's like, you got to see this kid next year, and then that builds that kind of pipeline. Not saying that's what happened in this instance, but the more you target a certain area, the more fruit it tends to result in. So big time commitment there. Got another commitment this weekend from a punter from Australia. Now, yes. Greg had previously mentioned that I think it was when it was like the first press conference of spring. Yeah. He announced that Flynn Appleby was leaving, but that he had another guy in the works from Australia. So it sounds like Jakob Anderson, the punter commitment, was that guy that they targeted. Another kick from Pro Kick Australia. If you saw his commitment photos, there's one with him posing next to Adam Corsack with an Australian flag. Tell us a little bit about Jakob Anderson, how this kind of commitment came together, everything about him.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know a whole lot about him. I was just basically told the bare minimum. So Australian, worked with Pro Kick Australia, trained and worked with Adam Corsack down there in Australia. This is the same, I shouldn't say company. This is the same group that's also sent Jude McAtamney and Flynn Appleby to Rutgers. And these guys they're unbelievable with what they do with kicking prospects from Australia. I think they just sent a guy to Texas A&M yesterday or the day before. They were also responsible for Torrey Taylor. They produce so many different kickers. It's insane. Kickers, punters, anything special teams, they find a way to get them to the States, and they get them scholarships somehow. I believe actually they were the guy in the Super Bowl that kicked for the Chiefs was one of their guys as well, or maybe it wasn't the Chiefs. Maybe I'm thinking the championship when it was the 49ers. I don't know. But regardless, it was they just produce at a crazy high rate. 19 years old, going to turn 20 this year. I don't know the extent of how good he is or anything, but he's similar to maybe it wasn't Corsack. I think it was Jude or Flynn. One of them was a professional AFL player over there, and this kid was as well. I think he recently participated in the AFL Under-18 Championships, which, for those of you that don't know, Australian Football League. It's a little different. It's definitely not American football whatsoever, but yeah, who knows? I mean, so far, these guys have kind of steered them in the right direction of landing some solid punters, and I can't imagine this kid being any different than the other three. I mean, maybe Corsack's in a league of his own, but the other two.
Yeah, I'd say Corsac is a once in a generation type guy you're going to see on the
Yeah.
banks. Anybody who could even approach the levels of punting that he had would be a huge win for us, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's not really a whole lot of metrics that are available to these guys
Yeah.
because
No.
you're essentially with specialist recruiting. It's a lot of like you have your trusted guy, and you saw this with Shiano 1.0 and 2.0,
Mm-hmm.
where basically like you have the whether it be Brooke Australia. I think there was a guy back in the day that they went to for kickers. Was it something Anderson? There's like a big kicking guru.
I
Anyway,
can't
there's
remember.
like gurus you typically go to saying, "Hey, we're going to need a punter in 24. Can you do?" And they probably get paid to consult for that too. But anyway, you go
Yeah.
to these guys. They give you a list of guys. You get tape on them, and then you have start the discussion there. So we'll see how things go. It couldn't. The punting was pretty bad in the spring game, so it can only go up from there. That was another big negative to be expected given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Anything else football related before we head over to the hoop side of things?
No, not really. Kind of shouldn't say dead, but I expect a little bit of every time I say this, they get a commitment. So I shouldn't say this, but I expect a little bit of a gap now for recruiting. Maybe not at the portal. The portal's going to be a little different because kids have 2 days, 3 days. May 1st is the final day for football portal recruiting. It's the final day for basketball recruiting. I kind of like how those timelines actually add up for a change instead of being some 2 random days. But I think it's going to be relatively quiet on the recruiting front until official visits start at the end of May, and we'll kind of just wait on that.
All right, let's go over to some hoops stuff. A lot of people and we have been really thirsting for some basketball portal recruiting news. Is there anything that you are hearing that is new regarding either of the 2 remaining scholarships for the portal for hoops?
I mean, they clearly want a shooter. That's without a doubt. I was talking to someone yesterday who said that Rutgers did reach out to I keep saying Aiden. It's not Aiden. Alex
Hemingway
from
Clemson.
I'm thinking of the fucking St. Mary's kid. Yeah, Hemingway. Sorry, my brain's all mush because so much football recruiting and basketball recruiting. There's too many names out there. So he's a name that they definitely reached out to. They're intrigued by. They would like to get him on campus. I don't think it's going to happen from what I was told. Sounds like Indiana's like far and away in the lead there, and it shouldn't come as a surprise because Indiana native. It's like just growing up down the street from Rutgers. It's
a little different too.
Yeah.
The Hoosier State is you kind of are born into Indiana basketball. That is majority of people grow up wanting to play. In Bloomington, not many people get the chance to, but you've seen a lot of guys make their way back to Indiana after having standout careers elsewhere.
Yeah. I'm told it's also hard for them sometimes because it's just hard to promise kids minutes now because it's like, all right, we got Durkak, we got Acuff, we got Jeremiah, Dylan, Jamichael. Like it's just hard to promise guys minutes, and that's right. It's part of the factors of like when it comes to selling these kids on it. Yes, it's cool to play with Ace and Dylan. Yes, it's cool to see NBA scouts every night. But end of the day, who cares if I can't get minutes?
And you saw that with Jaden Jones, the guy or Jadon Jones, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy who visited Rutgers, sounded like everything went well. Yep. Then he visited Oklahoma, and they were promising him more playing time, and he committed there this weekend. So that's a name off the board.
It sucks. It sucks to lose him because he was already on campus too, which was nice.
Yep.
So it's gonna be tough to promise guys minutes. They're gonna fill the ships. So I would just say be patient. Another name that popped up recently was Melvin Council from Wagner. Melvin Council Jr. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think he's the shooter you want either.
He's shooting at like 27% from 3 this past year.
Although he did average 15, 6, and 4. Like those are some good numbers, but again, not a good shooter. Did help them lead them to the NEC tournament title. Also led them in a first-round victory. I think it was the playing game. A playing game win over Howard. Play-ins are just as important as a tournament, so he has tournament experience, so that's nice. And on top of it, he's a former JUCO that played at Monroe College alongside Emmanuel Ogbol. A couple connections there. He's also Monroe College's all-time leading scorer at 1,400 points over 2 years, which something to keep an eye on. I know he's not the shooter you want, but I mean, it's another guy that can get buckets if you need. So it's definitely something to a name to monitor at the very least.
Yeah, another name to monitor is Supreme Cook. I know a lot of people are connecting dots there. He's the former Fairfield big man. He ended up going to Georgetown for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's the connections with Jay Young to Rutgers. Who knows if he's been, how much he's been involved since he's left Fairfield. What are you hearing on Supreme Cook?
They're another one that they're interested in. Nothing is certain by any means. I've been talking to some Big East guys. We actually have a Georgetown site too. I've been talking to. A lot of them aren't confident in him as a 5 at the Big East level.
Yeah.
So that's where it's more like, all right, if you're not confident in him as a 5 at a Big East level, what the hell makes you think he could be a 5-man at the Big Ten level?
Yeah.
That's stuck in the Stone Age playing bully booty ball down low. Like, it's just, I don't know if that's the man that you want. I know some people have talked about him. Now, he's a good rebounder. I just don't know if, like, as a post defender, how is he going to hold up? Am I just throwing out Antoine Woolfolk out there again, basically? Like, if I wanted to do that, I probably would have just kept Antoine Woolfolk, who's played football and probably has a little bit of a bruiser mentality, I guess. Plus, I have my bruiser on the bench in Emmanuel Ogbol, so I don't really need another guy like that, especially an undersized one. I personally don't like the addition if they go after him, but it does sound like they are interested. It does sound like that's a guy that's realistic in terms of money-wise and NIL and all that, and we know that's a huge factor with most of these guys, especially big men, because they're getting more money than anyone right now. They are the offensive line of the portal for hoops.
Yeah, and you got to still see some dominoes fall there. Supreme Cook's not a great rebounder. He's got a really low block rate. He's not the interior defender I think they hope to get in the portal as a big man.
No,
but who knows as things continue to go on, what direction they decide to go. Additionally, a lot of schools seem to be doing this. So I'm not saying Rutgers is or is not, but it seems like a lot of schools are kind of waiting until the portal closes to really kind of dive into some of their targets. Like, obviously, if you have a tier 1 target, you're not going to ignore him and let him go elsewhere. But I think for the tier 2, tier 3 type guys, they're either keeping them on the back burner or want to kind of wait until the portal closes so you don't run into situations like we saw with, Felix Okpara in Ohio State, where they really wanted another center. They get a good one in Aaron Bradshaw, and then the other one leaves. They don't, are you creating another problem by solving your first problem? I don't think a lot of schools want to deal with that. Another, big time change in that also that was announced recently is that grad transfers now have to enter by the portal deadline as well. Yep. So you're not going to have another situation that Rutgers had last year where guys who are graduates can now decide in June or July, actually, I want to do it. I do want to enter the portal, and I'm going to, use that to my advantage. That is no longer allowed. They have to enter at the same time as the undergraduate. So that deadline is just one firm deadline now. So if you don't enter by, I think May 1st, like you said, they are not allowed to be in the portal. So big time change in that role as well.
Yeah. That's huge. Cause you go and get a center right now. What's stopping, I don't know, Lathan from being like, hey, I'm out? What's stopping Emmanuel Ogbol from being like, yeah, I'm out? Like, you get a center at this moment, it makes a lot of sense for one of them to be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a third guy. Like, if you wait till May 1st, you can kind of work with some things. I know other people have asked me too, and this is kind of a little off topic, but people have also asked me about the 4-man spot. From what I was told recently, again, they are super high on Dylan Grant playing that role. He is going to play minutes this year.
Wow. He's
going to be the backup 4 if I had to guess. Again, I said this previously, but like when he was in the locker room with these guys this offseason, or not this offseason, this season, I was told he was the second biggest dude in there other than Cliff. Like, he's taller than you think. Like, he's bigger than you think. Like, he's going to play serious minutes. And the people are concerned about the rebounding. There's a guy that can rebound right there. I mean, you don't see every day a guy getting 18, 19 rebounds in an AAU game. Like, it's kind of unheard of. I think he's going to play a significant role. So I think definitely keep an eye out on him. The next 2 spots are probably shooter and big man, if I had to guess, but you're probably going to have to wait for the big man. Shooter, Nate gave you a couple names already. We'll see if those come to fruition and they visit campus or not, but kind of just waiting and seeing. It's not like I'm not posting stuff. I know people are like, oh, where's the scoop? And I'm like, there's nothing to post. Like, just waiting for something to happen. Trust me. I'm in the same boat as you are.
Yeah, no, it's a waiting game, and I know it's frustrating, but again, the staff is aware of where they still need to fill some gaps, and I do think they will. So everybody, I hope you can get off the ledge. Things are going well. If you look at some programs don't even have a portal commitment yet. Rutgers has 4, and I think all 4. They have 3 or 4 at this point. I think it's 3.
Acuff, Martini, Durkak. Am I missing one?
No, that must be 3 then. So they got 3 really good complementary pieces to this team next year, and they're looking for 4 and 5 still. So I would not panic. I think this is how things just kind of play out. The timelines are kind of all over the place, and I think things will start to move as the deadline to enter passes. I think that's when you might see a lot of activity amongst a lot of schools in the country, including Rutgers. So
yeah,
stay tuned for that.
I will say this too. I know they had Big Ten meeting. I almost said Big East. Big Ten meetings recently, and like the whole conversation. Well, not the whole conversation. One of the conversations was like, "How the hell do you guys have 11 dudes?" Like most teams don't have 11 dudes. Most teams in the Big Ten have like 10, 9, 8, even less. Like it's so. Be kind of happy that Rutgers is currently sitting with 11 guys on scholarship currently, because a lot of teams right now, not just the Big Ten, don't have that many players on scholarship. So you could be like, look at UConn, look at the defending champs. They're sitting here with like 5 open spots. I think 4 now because they got another guy, but be happy that you only have 2 open spots left. Like a lot of teams are still looking for guys, and they're struggling just as much. So
yeah, and you look at a program in state. Seton Hall just lost its 9th scholarship player this offseason, so it always can be worse. Remember that. We've kind of run the gamut. That's all I had on my list of things. I guess a big wrestling news item.
I was going to say, I'm going to butcher that one if I have to say that.
Yeah, so the heavyweight, I'll just call him Yara, because that's what I know him as. One of Rutgers' 3 All-Americans from this past year. He announced that he was entering the portal. He announced today that he is returning to Rutgers. So that's a huge retention for the Rutgers wrestling program. As anybody who follows the program knows, the heavyweight has long been a difficult position for Rutgers to get right, and it looked like they had a really good one for 2 years. Obviously, he had a great year 1 for Rutgers. But he will be coming back for his final year of eligibility next year. So huge win for the wrestling program.
Yeah, that's someone who can legitimately compete for heavyweight next year. I don't forget what he finished this year. 4th, 5th, 6th, something like that. I think 6.
I'm not sure the exact spot, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 6. And some of those other guys are gone now, whether it be graduation or just leaving, going to do whatever the hell they're going to do. And it's going to be a fun year for wrestling next season. I know there was a lot of hate on Goody for some reason because a lot of weirdos out there. But, I mean, hell, Big Ten champ this year in Dylan Shawver. Maybe repeats it again next year. Yara's back, who you thought was gone. Your heavyweight's solved. Done. Some other pieces that they added, Mason Gibson recently. You just got to kind of fill in the holes here and there with the portal, kind of like what Greg does with football. Don't use it specifically just to make a team, but use it to fill some holes and then see what happens.
Yep, absolutely. Just a programming note, I will be going on vacation starting Wednesday for a week. So I'm not sure how many episodes we will be having for you in the near future. I will bring my travel podcasting equipment, and yes, I do have a travel mic now and my AirPods, and as you can tell, for whatever reason, my AirPods didn't want to work today, so that's why I'm wearing regular headphones. So unless something major happens, like a commitment or whatever, I would not expect any podcasts over the next week. Apologies, but we will be back to a regular programming schedule starting next Wednesday.
All right. That works for me. Take a nice little week off.
Additionally, we did have a bunch of people comment in the last video and send in some podcast reviews on Apple. Appreciate you guys doing that. We still have that giveaway. We have 3 different prizes that we're going to give away. One is going to be the Rutgers branded cornhole. There's going to be a signed card given away, and Rutgers jersey, the one with the stitching. Is that a football jersey, basketball jersey?
Football, yes.
Football jersey. So the first prize will be the cornhole. Second prize will be the jersey. Third prize will be the Dylan Harper autograph. So continue to enter. If you type in the comments of this video, gimme, 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 that'll enter you once. If you submit a podcast review on Apple using that term, gimme, 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 somewhere in your review, you will get 2 entries. So we'll do that probably the second week in May. We'll end the giveaway at some point, maybe the third week, but we'll end at some point this month. So I want you to have the chance to enter that. But for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast, signing off.